The city was jet black. Everybody was trying to protect themselves.
Just thinking of my life and my son's life.
I was a victim. My family was a victim. And it's not going to happen again.
Vinny Purvell and his neighbors at Algiers Point had survived Hurricane Katrina, but they weren't sure they would survive the ruthless attacks by armed looters.
There was one point we became fearful for our lives.
It was the day after the storm, and Vinny was out checking on some neighbors' homes when two thugs clubbed him with a sledgehammer and carjacked his van.
And then one of them stood over me with the maul and said, "Don't move, we want your truck." So the other one dug through my pocket, got the keys, got in the van and took off. There was a police car just a few feet behind them, but he wouldn't pursue it.
Vinny knew then they were in trouble. No police protection meant that the looters would keep coming back. And they did.
3 young men came through. There was gunfire, about 20 rounds fired right in front of me. My mom jumped on the floor.
Gunfire that hit too close to home. So Vinny pulled out an old shotgun that had been given to them.
In fact, when we came home with it, we didn't like guns, so we put it in the back of a closet and just left it there and actually forgot about it.
But not anymore. They used that shotgun and some firearms borrowed from neighbors who had left town to set up Fort Pelican, a watchtower on Vinny's balcony, all to keep the thugs out.
We sat here on this balcony at nighttime, slept on this balcony in the chairs, and you hear gunfire all over.
When we didn't see a policeman, and we couldn't call 911 up.
And until this occurrence here, I didn't realize what the necessity was for it. But now I do. Now I'm going to get me a gun. I'm going to learn how to use that gun. I'm going to protect my home.
Go get one. If you're an honest citizen, get one if you're in fear.
Marie Galatis, a Baptist minister, faced the same story in her neighborhood. The same threats by thugs, the same lack of police. But she never once felt afraid.
I had my Bible and I had my gun, and I knew I was safe.
Marie knows she was lucky. She was never forced to leave home and didn't have her firearm confiscated.
It's going against my constitutional rights as a citizen.
But Marie remembers how upset she got when the police department threatened to take her firearm.
Yeah, no one will be able to be armed. We will take all weapons.
So what you come and get my gun for? I'm a good citizen. Why don't you go get some of these people that's murdering people and robbing the stores and breaking in homes and everything? What are you worrying about me for? I'm a widow. I'm 65. I'm here by myself.
People are scared to death, and it's because of crime. Women come in who cried at the door saying, "We need to buy some guns. We need to protect ourselves."
I want people to remember.
Remember Buell Teal? The firearms he had for protection were confiscated by sheriff deputies. And although he tried to get them back, all he got was the runaround.
It made me angry when they told me to go get a lawyer if I wanted my guns back.
Angry enough to pick up the phone and call the one group he knew could help him, the National Rifle Association.
This was a Tuesday around noon when I called NRA. Wednesday at noon, an investigator was knocking on my door, had just flown in from New York.
2 days later, the NRA filed a federal lawsuit, and a judge quickly ruled in its favor, ordering law enforcement to stop confiscating firearms from law-abiding citizens and to return those they had already taken.
And this was the 2 rifles that they confiscated.
It was a major victory for firearm freedom and for people like Buell Teal. He finally got his firearms back.
Okay, this is my grandson's gun. He was overjoyed when the NRA stepped in and got his gun back for him.
No, absolutely. I don't think I would have got him back, if it wasn't for the NRA. I was tickled to death.
But gun owners in New Orleans weren't that lucky. Despite an order from a federal court judge, they still couldn't get their guns back.
The city attorney has argued that there is no Second Amendment right and that cities and localities can confiscate guns at will and you don't have any Second Amendment rights at all.
The city was in denial, first denying that they took the guns, even though the police gave the order on TV to do just that.
No one will be able to be armed. We will take all weapons.
And now denying that they even had them. But that all changed when the NRA went back to federal court a second time, demanding the mayor be held in contempt.
For the first time, they've admitted not only that they have guns, but we saw them ourselves stored in a double-wide trailer.
There were so many guns, and they were stacked in these big piles.
As many as 1,100 firearms are being stored in this police trailer. And finally, people like I.H. Spurlock had hopes of getting their guns back.
But this is what I'm missing. These 6 here.
Revolver. That's my personal gun.
My 12-gauge shotgun that my father bought me when I was a 15-year-old.
World War I German Mauser rifle.
Firearms taken from most people's homes after they had already evacuated. But Spurlock was optimistic because although the police took his guns, they left behind the empty cases, and he had the serial numbers written down inside.
See how I got them number S1213. And that's the only thing gonna help me.
But still, that wasn't enough. Spurlock walked away empty-handed.
You getting no cooperation with them in there about your gun. I showed them these numbers that I have. They refused to accept them. Let the people go in there and look. Well, we can't do that. What the hell are we doing down here then?
And Spurlock wasn't alone in his frustration.
Oh, I have the receipt and everything here where I bought the gun. They say they don't have it. I have the serial number and everything.
They left a note, obviously, when they were confiscating the guns that said, shotgun in custody of New Jersey State Police Department. I called them and they said they left the guns with NOPD. They can't find the gun.
Doesn't seem fair to me. I mean, I'm a deer hunter. I'm not no criminal.
Basically, my guns were stolen from me, and I really want them back.
Faces of victims, victims of a storm, and victims of a system that wouldn't protect them or allow them to protect themselves.
This should make y'all just as angry as it does me.
That's why nearly 200 residents drove from miles around to this town hall meeting in New Orleans to make sure as Americans we never forget. And the NRA was there to listen.
The government you trusted to be honest lied to you. That's why we're here. We're here to hear your stories.
And we're going to take them and we're going to relay them all over this country so that people can feel and taste what happened down here to make sure it never happens again.
The bottom line is this. Once they did it, they set a precedent. And what we've got to be sure is that the precedent stops here.
People told stories of being left defenseless while the thugs ran rampant.
They took my guns. I'm unable to find them. In all honesty, yeah, I'm mad. I tell them I'm not going to take it anymore, but this is never going to happen to me again.
Stories of survival.
I think I counted a total 19 bullet holes in my house. I had more windows broken from bullets than I had from the hurricane.
And one woman's frightening memories of being attacked in a van while her family packed up their belongings.
All of a sudden, it was like out of nowhere, there are these two big guys come up in front of the van and start beating on the hood and jeering at me. I get nervous just thinking about it. Each one comes to the side window, one on this side and one on this side, and they start beating on the windows. And so all I did was just pick up my gun and glare at them. You never saw two big guys run so fast. They were gone.
And there were also confessions from victims who became new believers.
I never owned a gun, didn't have a desire to own a gun. But we got our community involved. We have 30 of us that have signed up for a gun class.
It was a religious experience for me, and I did witness the conversion of a couple of folks who had hated guns before.
The Battle of New Orleans, reclaiming people's rights, restoring people's freedom, and a reminder to Americans that we must never forget.
It doesn't sound like America at all. It doesn't, not the America I came up in.
If you want to know what happens to your rights, remember New Orleans, because my rights were trampled on.
Every time you purchase a firearm, every time you go to a range, every time you go to training, you must remember the NRA. You must remember your rights. New Orleans is going to be the battle cry, I hope, for all of the Second Amendment.
Freedom's at stake, our rights are at stake. People don't believe it, it's happening here.
You better watch your gun rights and fixing to go away.
Join the NRA, stand up for your rights. If people should remember anything from this, it's like Charlton Heston said, from my cold, dead hands.
You know, I've had a lot of people in this town tell me that when you go through something like they've gone through, it changes your life, but it also changes the way you think. I've had people tell me they never owned a firearm and are going to now. I've had people tell me they only owned a firearm for hunting, target shooting, or collecting, and never really thought much about the Second Amendment. Yet now they'll spend the rest of their life fighting any politician that wants to take away their guns. The best way you can do that is pick up the phone right now, call the National Rifle Association, and join. Together, I promise you we'll protect this freedom and stop the government from ever again coming into law-abiding folks' homes and taking away their source of protection when they need it most.